So in this video we're going to look at connective tissue, and unfortunately I won't be able to provide my notes for this video, but try and cover as much as possible. So your connective tissue basically provides structural and metabolic support for other tissues and organs throughout the body. It starts in the embryo, and all connective tissue are derived from mesenchymal cells. So just remember that it's a connective tissue, it equals mesenchymal cells. And because it has mes as the root, automatically remember it's mesoderm as the germ layer, or neural crest cells. So if we're looking at the tissue fluid itself, we have the tissue, which is going to undergo two forms of pressure. So if we have a valve right here, and so we have a capillary here, and a pressure is being applied to that capillary, we have two types of pressure that can occur. One is going to be our osmotic pressure, and I'm going to draw this in blue because water is blue, and the other is the hydrostatic pressure. And if you look at how it's drawn, it's kind of showing which is greater at what point. So initially it's going to be greater as fluid is flowing from the artery going to the vein. And we have the lymphatic capillaries coming in and applying this pressure because we have this capillary bed. So the hydrostatic pressure, which I said was this green one, this is osmotic. The hydrostatic pressure is going to drive fluid out of the capillary and is highest at the arterial end of the capillary and lowest at the ventricular end. So as we see the hydrostatic as we're going down the arterioles into the capillaries, it's going to have the highest pressure, and then once we get into the venous system, it decreases pressure. Now osmotic pressure, it increases as we go towards the venous system from the arterial system. So if we think about it, an increase in osmotic pressure is going to allow for reabsorption at the ventricular end. So it's this higher osmotic pressure that's allowing for fluid or water to come back into the venous system. And the lymphatic capillary that we see right here, it's going to ensure that the excess fluid is picked up, otherwise an edema can form. So we know that we have the lymphatic system that's going to pull this excess fluid, and this fluid, as we know it as lymph, circulates throughout the body and then returns back into the circulatory system. Now if we think in terms of a cut, so we have the same valve right here, and say that there is a cut right here. Well, I know this is going to be a bad example, but what's going to happen is we're going to have fibroblasts, and what they're going to do is they're going to synthesize elastin and collagen, as well as reticular fibers. And so this is the route it's going to produce these three items. And so that's the ultimate product at once. But in order to get there, what's going to happen is it's going to first go down and make tropocollagen, then fibrils, then finally fibers, and then bundles. And that's going to lead to making these fibers right here. And collagen, as we know it, it's what gives that elastic nature to a lot of tissues. It's also seen in tissues throughout your body. So if you think of celebrities and they're putting all this collagen in, it's really just to help in keeping the tissue nice and strong in the way it should be. Another path is in the production of collagen. So what we have is we're going to start with procollagen. And this is going to lead us to hydroxylate proline and also hydroxylate lysine. And this is going to lead to proglycosylation by adding glucose or galactose. And this takes us down to the pro-alpha chain, which becomes a triple helix. And it's going to enter the Golgi and integrate into the extracellular matrix. And now we have the procollagen peptidase leading to tropocollagen. Now, if you remember in the last little diagram I had, I showed that fibroblasts lead to tropocollagen. So there's actually all these steps that are occurring that leads to the formation of tropocollagen. And so now we made collagen, we're going to finally make our collagen fibrils, which is going to lead to cross-linking, and finally it's going to be formed by lysyl oxidase enzyme. So this is going to lead us to making our collagen that we need. So what you need to know, the function is really, it's going to be maintaining anatomic form of organs and organ systems. As a connective tissue, it's going to surround organs. As a loose connective tissue, it's going to fill space between the organs. And the metabolic function is nutritive. So an example is a capillary bed. Now, if we think about what are the components of connective tissue, we know that there is ground substance, which can change from fluid to gel, or can be hard. It can act as a medium for molecules to pass through connective tissue or gel matrix, and it contains adhesive proteins which regulate cell movement. So if we're looking at connective tissue itself, we need to know what it's made of. So some of the components for connective tissue, we've got tissue fluid, and tissue fluid is going to have salts, ions, and soluble proteins. It's also going to have gags, which are going to be attached to water. And there are basically three components: the gags, the proteoglycans, and the proteoglycan aggregates. And so what happens is a gag is going to basically attach to proteins to form a proteoglycan, and then that is going to attach to hyaluronic acid, and then this is going to lead to the proteoglycan aggregate. Now when we look at the adhesive glycoprotein, on the other hand, so an adhesive glycoprotein is it's going to be basically fibronectin and laminin. And laminin is basically found at the base of connective tissue. And it's important in epithelial forms, and it's part of the basal lamina. Now, the fibronectin, on the other hand, it's for cell adhesion, motility, and migration. And typically what you have to know is that there are 4 types, main types of collagen. There are more than 4 types. So the types, you can remember it with a mnemonic of scab. Because whenever you have a cut, you're using collagen to heal it, so you gotta scab it, right? So type 1 is skin, and that's going to form the fibers. Type 2 is connective tissue, and the C gives us the C in scab, and this is your thin fibrils. Type 3 is your arteries, and this is going to be found in smooth muscle and nerve cells. That's going to form stroma of lymphatics. It's also going to be reticular fibers. And then type 4 is going to be your basement membrane, or the B in scab. And in terms of microscopy and how our fiber bands versus the fibrils will look, if we're looking under light microscopy, just know that the fiber bands, you'll see collagen fibrils, fibril bundled in kind of a dark pink color. Under the electron microscope, you'll see fibrils that will have banding, and this is only in the electron microscope. Now if we think about elastin fibers, elastin is highly elastic, so that means it's going to be easily stretchable. And this is more involved in the tension form of the tissues. So it's contained by sheets of myofibrils. It can be in the form of elastic fibrils or sheets. It's found in arterial blood vessels, and they look like sheets of lasagna on the light microscope. So if you see an image in the light microscope on the exam, it probably, if it's lasagna-like where they're kind of stacked almost, then it's going to be your elastin fibers. Your reticular fibers, on the other hand, these are your type 3 collagens that we already went over, and they're going to be stained with silver, so they're agrophilic, so it doesn't stain with H&E. And so typically this is found in smooth muscles and the endothelium, the framework for forming organs, spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. It's arranged as a delicate network of fibers, so it's not bundled as what we've seen in others. And it's prominent during embryogenesis, inflammation, and wound healing. So the reticular fibers, unlike the elastic fibers, are going to be more delicate and about half the size of collagen fibers. In the next video, we're going to kind of go into what the different fibers kind of look like. We're going to look at the different cells that are kind of floating around in your blood, and I'm going to try and give you a quick diagram so it helps you remember all this stuff. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comment section, and if you like the channel, please subscribe.